Well, hello, boys and girls, and welcome to Team Preview number 18 of 32. It is most definitely the Miami Dolphins. Where you at, everybody? I'm Jim Derry. This is bet.noah.com, powered by the Dattitude Podcast, and we have reached the trendy pick portion of these previews. Say that 10 times fast. It's the Miami Dolphins. Seems like everywhere somebody's picking the Dolphins to run through the AFC East, and some of them even making it to the Super Bowl. Some of them, my God, that's their super surprise, quiet Super Bowl pick, the Miami Dolphins. Well, I mean, what's not to love about Tua? What's not to love about Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Mike McDaniels in his second season? This team's going to go from 9-8 to 2021 to 9-8 in 2022 to what in 2023? Well, let's find out. Yep. Seems like everything is rainbow and sunshine for the Miami Dolphins. They, they were 9-8 last year, just like they were the year before. The only difference is they made the playoffs this time. That's about it. They had maybe the weirdest season since the Saints went 3-13 in 2005 because they had to play every single game on the road after Hurricane Katrina. Now, Miami got to play their games at home, but how about this roller coaster ride? 3-0, 3-3, 8-3, 8-8, 9-8 playoffs, season over. And I think they should have won that game against the Bills in the playoffs, don't you? I mean, there was so many weird things that happened. 34-31. It wasn't even a ton of offense. It was just a weird game. And the Dolphins had plenty of chances to win. They just couldn't pull it off. But the story of the season wasn't so much that they were able to make the playoffs and should have won that wild card game and gone on to the divisional round. The story of the season was not Tyreek Hill having over 1,700 receiving yards. The story of the season was Tua Tagovailoa with 2 concussions. Some people say 3. I mean, he was contemplating retirement in the offseason, and that's how bad it got for him. He was able to come back after missing a few games, came back in the middle of a 5-game winning streak. Then they lost 5 games in a row. Then they were able to win the last one. He missed a couple games in that last little stretch too. Overall, he played in 13 games. So I'm trying to do the math real quick. 4 games. How about that? I did it really quick. Missed 4 games last season, and really in his career, 3 years now, he has not played more than 13 games in a season. That is a problem to me because when you start looking forward to this coming season, why is it going to be any different? I mean, everyone says if Tua stays healthy, if Tyreek Hill stays healthy, if this O-line stays, I mean, people always say that. If. It's a whole bunch of ifs. So you have, to me, when you're trying to find the best teams, you're trying to find a team that could sustain a big if, a loss at a big if. And I mean, I guess for most teams, if you take out their starting quarterbacks, they're not all going to be like the San Francisco 49ers. They can't just run through quarterbacks like the Niners did last year and come within a whisker of making it to the Super Bowl. And that's the case for the Miami Dolphins. I mean, and already their backup quarterback, Mike White, injured. I mean, they lost, you see that on the screen there, lost Teddy Bridgewater. So it's Tua right now. Now, Mike White's going to be back, but still. I mean, if they don't have Tua, they're in a whole lot of trouble. I mean, there's no question. You see the numbers on the screen here that Miami is, when Tua's playing, they're a really good passing team. But that's a lot because of Mike McDaniel and what he's been able to do. He has transformed this team. But in turn, their defense, when they went from Brian Flores to Mike McDaniel, their defense got worse. So you see the numbers on the screen. 4th best passing team in the NFL, 25th best running team. They're trying to make strides to be better there. They drafted Devon Achane in the was it 3rd round because they didn't have a 1st round pick. That's a whole nother story. If you want to look up why they didn't have a 1st round pick, go Google it. We're not going to explain it here. So with their 3rd round pick, they picked Devon Achane, and this kid's going to play a lot. He's looked pretty decent so far in the preseason. He's a little banged up as I record this, but they've got to get that running game better. They've got to make it so Tua's not throwing it 40 times a game, and so he's not opening himself up to be concussed. And on the defensive side of the ball, they brought in Vic Fangio to be the defensive coordinator because last year, after losing Flores, didn't go so well. They were 27th against the pass and 18th overall. And let me tell you something. In this division, if you're 27th against the pass, you can forget about it. All those dreams that you got, the little, your surprise pick, this team's going to be the surprise pick of the year, maybe go to the Super Bowl, great chance to win the AFC East at plus 300, you see it on the screen, value of the year. No, not if they're going to be 27th in pass defense. Honestly, if they're worse than like 20th, I don't know that they can be the best team in this division. And before we get to that schedule, what else do you want me to say about the defense? We could go through the different positions, but where were they hurting most? Maybe in the defensive backfield. And as we told you, they get Jalen Ramsey in a trade, and now he's injured. Might be back in December if they are to make a playoff run, maybe. But he's got a knee injury, and good chance that we won't see him at least anytime soon. So now let's go to the schedule. And this is key for this team right here. To me, if they don't start at least 4-2, they're in a world of hurt. 6th toughest schedule in the NFL based off of our formula. It's pretty close to what everybody has anyway. With the 6th toughest schedule, it doesn't look that tough to start. It's not easy by any stretch, but it gets super tough. Again, 4-2, can they do it? At the Chargers, at New England. So 2 games on the road to start the season. And then before hosting Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos, their home opener on September 24th. At Buffalo, they beat Buffalo last year early in the season, although it was in Miami. Then they play the Giants in Carolina. But this is when it gets tough. And you're going to see why I think they need to be 4-2. Their over-under is 9.5. They're going to get over. They're not 4-2. It ain't going to happen. At Philadelphia, back home for New England. Then they got to make the trip across the Atlantic to play Kansas City and Munich on November the 5th. Come back and have their bye week. And it doesn't, they have little bits and pieces that they ought to be able to navigate. But I don't see any long winning streaks here at all. Not like last year. Vegas, should be a win on November the 19th after the bye week. But then they got to go to the Jets, go to an improved Washington team. They do play 4 of their final games at home. Tennessee, tough Jets, tough Dallas, tough at Baltimore, tough Buffalo. Those last 4 games, that is a brutal finishing stretch, even if 3 of 4 of them are at home. That is brutal. So I guess that means it's time for the drum roll. We love when it's time for the drum roll. That means we're going to have our best pick. And you know what? It's really tough to make a best bet with this team. I'm not buying in, but I'm not completely selling either. I have them at 9-8. In fact, I ticked this down. I had it at 10-7 when I was first started a couple weeks ago. I started doing these previews, and I'm like, you know what? I don't want to be with Joe Q Public. I don't want to be with Aunt Mabel, and I don't want to take the over 9.5. At the same time, I'm not rushing to the window to bet the under 9.5 at minus 115. There is no value at all to me in betting anything, any positive number, any of those division total. There's no value in 3-1 to win the division. I don't think they're going to win the division. So if you're going to give me 3-1, you can have it. I don't want that. You may differ with me. So the best bet that I could find, and I don't think I've done this. In fact, I know I haven't done it with anyone else so far. Maybe we'll do it again before we're finished with these previews. My best bet is Tyreek Hill under 1,275 yards. And the reason being, I just don't think he can have another year like he had last year. Now, granted, he doesn't have to have a year like he had last year, but I think they're going to spread the ball out a little bit more. I think Tyreek Hill, he is 29 years old now, and this is when receivers, I say this all the time. This is when receivers start to just tinge down. This is my best bet for Miami. In other words, I don't really have a bet for Miami. I am not running to bet anything for this team. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs this year. I don't think 9-8 is going to cut it in the AFC this year at all. It did last year, but I just don't see it. They were 9-8 2 years ago. They were 9-8 last year. I don't think they're any better than they were last year, and their schedule is at least as tough as it was. Well, one of the next 2 teams I have to think is going to be better than the Dolphins, because I had the Dolphins third. We had Buffalo first yesterday. So who am I going to have second? Is it going to be The New England Patriots or the New York Jets? Tomorrow's the Patriots. Friday's the Jets. We know you're going to come back and find out. We'll see you then.